Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, the Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of three amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sankofa II, Pistons beat writer for Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. If you are not listening to Wes and Blake Silverman on the Pin Down on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel, you absolutely should be. And of course, make sure you are reading all of O2's work, following him on all social media accounts to get all the best Pistons beat coverage. And now that games have started up, I'm back with my raw notes analysis over games on the Motor City Hoops Substack, which is absolutely free. I will start doing some video breakdowns when I get a chance, probably in the regular season. And I've talked to some other people. I think I may have some other contributors coming in with different stuff throughout the season as well. As many of you know, this is our 200th episode of the Pistons Pulse. Much like we do things around here, not a big ado about it. No balloons, no huge celebration. We're just going to work at 7:30 in the morning, Eastern time, 6:30 in the morning, my time. The thing is, guys, we actually have a really cool guest spot tonight. We get to go join Nate Duncan, who's been a guest on this pod multiple times. He asked us to come on to his pod and talk Pistons. So we're doing that tonight. And so that kind of changed up our recording schedule. But O2, officially 200 episodes.
Yeah, we kind of kicked around doing something special, and then it was like let's just record and get into it. But it's crazy to think that we have 200 of these things. We're coming up, I believe, on the 4-year anniversary, which is just a very big sounding number. But that has been fun. It's been a blast. I know that's come through to our listeners, but ideally, let's do another 200 and keep it going, and maybe we can figure out the way to honor this down the road in some way.
100%. So real quick from Chris over on the Motor City Hoops Substack, he said he's been a fan of podcasts in general for a few years. When he made the decision to find a Pistons pod to check on the regular, before I found the Pulse, I found a bunch without insightful hosts and a couple that had good content, but presentation that I wanted to avoid. So glad y'all aren't shouty or negative all the time. I see the pod on YouTube and have given a like to nearly everyone since. Thank you. You guys be like Chris. Give us a like. Got to say my favorite episode so far was just a few weeks ago with Coach. A lot of layers were peeled back in that one. Congratulations to the whole team on 200. Looking forward to number 1,000. So thank you to Chris for that. I do think two of the really fun episodes was the one I got to do with Coach Jones, and also the one where we got to bring on Omari Sankofa II's dad, and we kind of got to peel back real layers, and you guys got to see us a little bit more in regards to those. But I thought that one right there just kind of explained, listen, we may not always be the most joyful. We may not always be the most negative. We may not be the most shouty or whatever, but I think we bring you real content. We're pretty diligent about it. I think we've only taken a week off, maybe once or twice in 4 years. And so hopefully you guys really enjoy the content we provide and would really appreciate you continuing to support us. So a few comments here. Cam says, good morning, fellas. Devon, I love this. The new job is strict over phones, so I'll watch after. What up, y'all, though? Yes, do not get fired just to listen to us this morning. Chuck Brewer, we'll get back to that. He says, good morning. Have a great and appreciative super chat here from Derek Brown, congratulating us on 200 episodes. Thank you so much, Derek Brown. I know Derek is a guy that's been supportive of our work and the Pistons Pulse for a long time. And while we appreciate all of our listeners, O2, it is kind of cool. There's some like OG ones that have been around for a long time. I know I have one that goes all the way back to the Motor City Hoops podcast days. So we appreciate everybody. O2's mom's here. Congrats and good morning, gang.
Morning, Mom. Thank you.
M. Wesley 13. Bryce, as a Chiefs fan, do you find yourself saying, okay, Collinsworth, calm down, or do you like him glazing Mahomes all game? Listen, I don't listen to the commentary a whole lot. The other thing I'll say is Collinsworth essentially ruined a season for Jawan Taylor a couple years ago. So
congrats to your Chiefs, by the way.
I wasn't going to say anything. I literally had somebody email me, shout out Larry, like, hey, do your thing. Your Chiefs won. I wasn't going to say a word. All I was going to say was the Chiefs podcast I listened to was very respectful of Dan Campbell and the Lions and how Campbell goes about his business and how the Lions go about their business and all of that. So like, I will say, whether Lions want to hear this or not, a lot of Chiefs fans and podcasts and stuff that I know really, really respect the Lions organization and how they go about things.
Yeah, and when the Chiefs are playing the Lions, like that's one of my favorite teams to watch. I mean, who doesn't enjoy watching Pat Mahomes? The only issue I have with the Chiefs is the way they're officiated when they play the Lions. But that's the stripes. That's not the team. I do think if they had not called back that Jared Goff touchdown, it at least would have been a little bit closer. But it's okay. It's okay. We'll see you guys in the playoffs. No, we'll see you guys at the Super Bowl. I'm sorry.
I hope not. I do not. I do not want that to happen. Chuck Brewer, it's thought out and not emotional. Always a great listen. Always try to listen live. Obviously, Chuck, we see you in the comments all the time. Cam says Texans are better than both. We got a lot of NFL season to play. Obviously, the Lions were beat up. I get that. The Chiefs deal with their own things. They're getting Rashee Rice back. We'll see how that changes. A lot of NFL season.
The fantasy team needs that.
Okay. Redford Union Hoops was looking forward to the listen live, but of course, being an administrator of a high school right now is not possible. We'll listen tonight when I cook dinner. I love it. Let us know what you're making there. But yes, we appreciate you guys trying to listen while you're doing your jobs, but we very much understand not able to do so. Let's talk basketball. That's what most people come here for. I think that's why we've made it to 200 episodes. 3 preseason games down, 0-2. We got 1 more to go on Thursday, and then we get regular season hoops coming up. Let's do the Mile High View or whatever you want to call it. Just thoughts on the 3 preseason games, and then there's some specific individual players I do want to talk about. We'll talk Cade Cunningham first, but just your overall thoughts on these 3 games thus far.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very preseason, right? JB's going deep into the lineups. Like
for Detroit, how about Cleveland playing their starters all the way till 3 minutes to go? I'm not taking shots at them. It's interesting how different teams handle it.
Yeah, I think Moby played like 35 minutes or something like that, which is insane. But I mean, for the Pistons, it's been very preseason. Like we've seen the starters, obviously, but we've seen a lot of the two-way guys, some of the Exhibit 10 guys, some of the end of bench guys, especially in the second halves, which as far as just making like firm takeaways going into the regular season, that does make it a little bit tougher, especially with some of the injuries. But the biggest thing is just, I think, some of the individual performances. Cade obviously crushed the first halves. Like, he didn't even play the second half in that first game. And, he didn't play against Cleveland last night. Brian, I think, has had a lot of good moments. Asar, I think it's been a bit of a mixed bag, but he's still doing a lot of the good stuff you want to see, with some flashes of some of the half-court stuff. So those guys have stood out. Like Isaiah Stewart's been like beef stew. He's been, exactly who he is, which is good to see. Not a lot of JI outside of that first game, so I think that's something that.
Okay, let's just get into that 0-2. So Cam says doesn't feel good not seeing the starting lineup once yet. I agree with that, and then I'll go back to Chuck's original comment. Have the Pistons commented why Ivy isn't getting any run in the preseason? So I had somebody DM me this as well. 0-2. Chuck, don't do that to our guy Killian. I actually didn't know Killian Hayes was on the Cavs, and then I turned on a Cavs preseason game the other day and realized. Any updates on Jaden Ivey? Like, is this just like like we said, we've seen different guys not play. Is he dealing with some little thing? Any sort of update on JI?
Yeah, there has been a little bit of vagueness as far as what he's dealing with. I asked JB Monday if he was dealing with any discomfort, and JB essentially said yes, he is dealing with discomfort. And before that, kind of mentioned just bringing him along slowly, making sure he's comfortable with everything. The Pistons have their only preseason home game on Thursday, so obviously that's a potential return. If not then, I think it would be more surprising to not see him in the regular season, but we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, there's been a little bit of vagueness. I'm more so looking toward like next week, a week from now, when they tip off the season in Chicago. Where is he then, and like what kind of minute load is he playing? So, there has been some vagueness, but obviously, if he misses another preseason game, I think it becomes a little bit more of a big issue.
YouTube user says, this is by far the best Pistons pod out there. O2 is great, and Bryce is my favorite NBA content creator on YouTube. Thank you, YouTube user. I've got to know what I really like is I've got to know some of these people. They'll DM me or hit me through the Substack or whatever. And as they know, I think they know, I enjoy our conversations in those capacities as well. Yeah, so any other injury stuff, as Cam says, Sasser, Karras, like were some of those other ones just like, hey, this is these guys' night off and we're going to get some other guys opportunities. Obviously, we're going to talk about Dennis Jenkins. I thought maybe it was just a chance to get him into the, a starting role and a bigger role and see how he played. And we'll talk about that. Are there any other injury things you could report? Obviously, Dern was back, so that was good to see. Is there anything you can really say like, hey, this guy is like kind of a concern without the vagueness you mentioned of the Jaden Ivey situation?
Yeah, we'll see if they practice today and hope to get some more clarity then. But like my belief is that like they're just making sure guys are ready for the regular season. I mean, JB knows Karras. He's a bit more of a known commodity. So, you don't need to force things there. Tobias, I think, missed game 2 and it came back for game 3. And, they've just been juggling a little bit. So, like I said, this Thursday, they return home and that's their last tune up for the regular season. I think between their next practice and then we'll get a lot more clarity on where, guys stand going into that opener.
Devon asked, do we know what's up with J.I.? We just discussed that. I know you're like at work and whatever, but if you go back, a couple minutes on the stream, you'll be able to hear O2's answer on that. Okay. My big takeaway is similar to you. I think it's been handled very preseason-y. We've seen different lineups. You got me excited with your Twitter post yesterday that maybe JB was going to give us a taste of what a real rotation would look like. Maybe that's coming on Thursday, tomorrow in the final preseason game. We've seen different guys. We've seen guys in different roles. Let's go ahead and get into that. I do think, lots of times we try not to be the podcast that always talks about Cade Cunningham at the top and just, all of that. Our guy Koo showing love from work. Appreciate you, Koo. Also, one of the best Pistons podcasts out there as well. Koo does great work on his podcast, on his Substack. Make sure you're following and subscribe to his Substack. He does video breakdowns and all of that as well. So make sure you're supporting Locked On Pistons and everything Koo does as well. Chuck, I promise we're going to get to Dennis Jenkins here pretty soon. Let's start with Cade, though. You mentioned it. I'll give you the preseason stats. 2 games, 23 points on 64, 50, 91 in 19 minutes per game, 4.5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 turnovers, 2 steals. I mean, O2, could we want to see anything else from this man?
No, I mean, he came out and did what he had to do. Really, at least from my end, there's just not a whole lot to talk about. Like he looked like Cade. I feel like every bucket was scored in like a different way. So he got to show off his bag a bit. You saw some step back threes, spin moves. I mean, just everything, right? Like it was everything you would want to see from him in the minutes that he played. So will he play Thursday? We'll see. But I mean, he's Cade. Like clearly he's in midseason form. I'm not sure what else he needs to show really at this point, just from a readiness standpoint, because he came out ready.
So I will just quickly read some of my notes from the Substack. I want to come back to one because I want to get your thoughts on it. Asar running transition offense allows Cade to get out and run. And we've seen him and this team in general do a little bit of the Indiana Pacers, get out and try to get transition post position, but it allows Cade to do that. He hit a floater finish. He had a pull-up 3 that looked good. The 2-way impact, Omari, he fights a transition post up himself that drew an offensive foul, got a dig off the ball, creating a steal, a rotation steal off a ball screen double. I want to come back to the 2-way impact as well. I am a little bit fascinated to see how much they play him off the ball in the regular season. Is this just a preseason thing where, hey, we're trying to get Asar the ball, Dennis the ball, some of those things? Or is he going to do some of this like Iverson action that he turns into a backdoor or a rip and go and those things? And then there was a pick and roll rep with Stu in the second quarter of the Bucks game where Cade was just in complete control, manipulating the defense, and Stu ended up getting a bucket. And as Koo says, we saw some movement threes coming off pin downs, saw some of Cade's versatility for the first time in a while. So you can really see, and as YouTube user worked on his weakness, his 3-point shot looked so much better. I think a lot of that has to do with the conditioning as well. I always felt like, as you say, YouTube user, when he misses, it's flat. Like, I would love to go track all of Cade's misses. I would venture to say of the misses, over 50% come off the front of the rim. It's not often right or left. And so if he is in better condition and he is a little bit stronger, I think that will help it. So, yeah, Aruna brings up a good point. The only reason for Cade to keep playing is for other guys to play with him. I just thought he was awesome offensively. Here's what I don't think the NBA realizes enough. And if we get to our hot takes, this will really come into play. I don't think people realize how good Cade is defensively, O2. When we talk about other guys in his ilk, the Luka Doncic's, the Trae Youngs, those type of players, Cade is better defensively than those guys. Now, offensively, is he Luka level yet? No. But defensively, I don't know that the wide-ranging fan base of the NBA understands how much of a two-way player this guy is. And the other thing I want to bring up is they started him in this game on Bobby Portis. And what that allows you to do is start, if you want to, Asar at the 4, but still let Asar go defend guards. And so I found that interesting as well, because one of my biggest issues long-term with Asar being the 4 was not being able to take the Donovan Mitchell, the Steph Curry, the whoever matchups. But if Cade has the defensive matchup versatility to go guard 4 men, that opens up that starting lineup a little more. So I just wanted to bring that up defensively because I don't think he gets talked enough about with Cade.
Yeah, and they're looking at ways, going back to your point earlier about Star handling the ball a little bit more, the guys handling the ball, and Cade coming off his second actions, or finding which way to attack it, transition. They do want to bring all of that into the regular season. It's not really about getting the ball out of Cade's hands, but just making the offense more dynamic. And if there's one thing Cade hasn't had, through his not coming up on 5 seasons, it's like opportunities to be like that second guy, right? And that's not, uncommon for a superstar today's age to, types of acts. Like, a lot of teams now have 2 stars, and obviously those guys are going to find ways to make it easier for each other. So they're going to continue to have Asar push the ball in transition, find opportunities in half court. We may see Cade come off some more pin downs, get some of those, cuts or transition buckets or whatever it may be. Like, Cade's easily had one of the hardest shot nights in the league since he came in. So that's, to me, that's really what it's about, right? Like, Cade shouldn't have to like work hard for every single bucket he gets. Like, we have enough talent, we have enough ball handling and athleticism elsewhere to create some of those easy opportunities that he hasn't been getting. And then you mentioned defensively too. Like, yeah, Cade could be a really good defender. I think he has another gear he can get to. And like, he's big, right? Like, he's 6'6" with like a really big wingspan. So, he's closer to a wing in size than, I guess, a quote unquote guard. So, you could probably put him on the Bobby Portis's for a bit and feel pretty good about it, especially if that allows a guy like Asar, now to, check somebody else, one of their primary ball handlers, which is where you need him. So, really it's just other guys' roles expanding when Cade's on the floor, but, just with the expectation that this will help Cade in the long run as well.
All right, we're going to go to short break. When we come back, I want to talk real quick about Tobias Harris. We'll talk Tobias Harris. He had quite a few minutes in yesterday's game. It was a little rough to start, and then he got it going. That can be a little shorter conversation, and then we'll get into some more of the young guys. So we'll get into Tobias Harris right after this.
All right, we're back with segment 2. Tobias didn't play against the Bucks, but he came back last night in Cleveland, and like, really, I mean, he was like the primary guy in that third quarter, and looked doing it. The preseason in general too. So, Bryce, I'm just curious what you've seen from the man that they call Unc, right?
Yeah, Unc. That's what I get called at football practice from my players. They call me Unc. Will J says, "What up, though, Bryce and O2? Thanks for the show. Always appreciate your support, Will J." Tobias, year 15 playing preseason games, pure hooper. That's what I thought. Like, he played.
Yeah, I thought he was done after last week.
Well, he played into the third quarter on Tuesday night, and my thought was like he struggled a little bit. He got blocked a couple times in the first half, and you could just tell he was like, to me, he wanted to go back in there and see the ball go in the basket and get a few buckets just to feel good about the performance. So real quick, his numbers through 2 games, 16 points on 56, 60, 75. We know he defensive rebounds. We even saw some of the defensive stuff where he has those active hands and is able to do that. I will say this, O2. I think he's moving well. Like, we wouldn't describe Tobias Harris as the most athletic dude in the NBA, especially in year 15, to Kuz's point. But I think he took Mobley off the bounce a couple times. Now, did Mobley come back and get him because Mobley's a DPOY candidate? Sure. But just seeing his ability to attack off the bounce, look like his movement, I don't want to say fluid because I don't think that's the right word. I just think he's moving well. Like, you're always worried when you get a player this age, are they going to come back and look super slow or like they can't move or they lost a step from last year to this year? Now, it's the beginning of the year and best shape of my life season and all of that. But I think it is a very positive sign that Tobias seems to be moving as well as he is. Because at the end of the day, even though I'm projecting his numbers to decrease a little bit, his importance on this team does not. Because I think we would all agree right now, he's the only true quote unquote 4-man in terms of body type. Now, can Asar play the 4? Sure. Can Ron Holland play the 4? Sure. Could we go Isaiah Stewart at the 4, especially if he keeps shooting threes for limited minutes? Sure. But when you just look at like body types, outside of probably Bobby Klintman, I think Tobias is the only body type that really fits that mold of what you immediately think of 4-man, at least for me. I shouldn't put words in other people's mouths.
No, but he definitely fits the 4 archetype. I think the most out of anybody on this team. And that's what I was going to say too. It's just that he's moving well. Like they call him Unc. Like obviously he's like the vet on his team. But even so, he's in year 15, and like that's like a pretty big number. It's different in today's league because you have guys in like year 23, and Chris Paul's in 20 or 21 or something now. So it's just different from a longevity standpoint. But this is year 15 for Tobias, and that's really it. Like he is moving well. He's fluid. Like players he has a strength advantage over. Like you're seeing him take those mismatches. And like Cade, I just think he's in midseason form. He's not a guy that really has anything to prove or anything to show at this point. I'm curious if he plays at home Thursday, but like that's what you want to see from Tobias, and for him to especially take charge last night when they were shorthanded. Like that's everything you want from him this season. And if he gives you what he gave you last year, then I mean obviously that's a really good scenario to be in.
All right, so here's my pitch to JB. O2, I'm not going to have you ask this question because that would be rude of me. Here's all I'm going to ask you to do. At the presser today after practice, go tell JB to turn on the Pistons Pulse at 23 minutes and 30 seconds, and Bryce is going to make his pitch for JB to play his normal regular season rotation for the first half on Thursday night. That's what I would like. That is my request of you and JB Bickerstaff. I want to talk Dennis Jenkins. Dennis Jenkins. Okay, so I want to be very fair. Sorry, Pistons. Trey Mann is currently my favorite player in the NBA. Because he's bringing back the long baggy shorts, which is the way basketball should be played. It was the way I played it, and it just looks cooler, quite frankly. So Trey Mann, shout out you. If you want to be a Piston, I would love it because you're my favorite player in the league right now. Dennis Jenkins is making the argument to be my second favorite player. I don't know. Like, I usually don't get quote unquote attached to these players. Like I just analyze and talk about them. I feel like I love Dennis Jenkins, man. Like this dude can hoop. He in 3 preseason games, just under 12 points, 50, 50, 75. Obviously not a big time rebounder, over 4 assists. We did see some of the turnover stuff last night. We know he can defend. We know he can navigate ball screens. Like I find myself going like, why is this dude not just a backup point guard in this league, at least in the regular season? I don't know. I think Dennis Jenkins is good, man. Where are you at on Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, every single time we've seen him, since Summer League, like he's really, really brought it. Like he plays with so much spirit and energy, which I think rubs off with his teammates. And he's always making plays. Like, he had some really nice passes early last night, and I think about that deep 3-pointer at the buzzer, which I think gave the Pistons the lead for the first time since pretty early in the game. And you talk about like what you want just from a backup point guard in this league, and I think Dennis checks a lot of those boxes. I think he brings the spirit, he brings the energy. Like he's a pretty classic point guard in how he can run the pick and roll and just move the ball in general. He could shoot it. I think he's had some good moments defensively, and he definitely plays with a lot of energy on that end. So I'm pretty much there too. Dennis has been good. Like he's I think done everything that's been asked of him and more. And like especially just going into like the cruise season next year, like him and like I'll mention Tolu too because I think Tolu has
Sure.
played well, but Dennis especially, I agree with you in that he's done a lot of what you just want from a backup NBA point guard in general, and it would be interesting to see him in that type of role.
So I don't know. Like I think where I'm at is like I think he's definitely a 15-man roster spot player. Which if you can keep him on a two-way, like it's fine. And I don't necessarily want the Pistons to use their 15th roster spot on him yet because it's like they can still use some more floor spacing. We all know the elephant in the room here and what happens with Malik Beasley. And, if you get into a trade situation and need to take back one more player and all of that. So, like, I'm not like necessarily pounding the table for that. I think where I'm at is like, I definitely think he's at least a 2.5 point guard, which means like, I'm not fully sold. He's your like too deep second string point guard, but he's at very least the third point guard, right? Like if somebody's out, somebody steps into the starting lineup, he's your backup point guard on that night. Like the Paul Reed, like can he be the Paul Reed of the point guard room? You know what I mean? And I think that's an important role to have on your team. And maybe you just get that from your two-way spot, right? Like maybe you don't need that guy on your 15-man roster. But man, I don't know. Every time I watch him, I get a little closer just saying, like, just play him as the backup point guard, as Arthur says here. Chuck says 100% agree. I think I'm a little bit more like the Paul Reed role for the center rotation is what I think Dennis can be for the point guard rotation. I will say, we always try to be fair here. We did see some turnover issues last night in that bigger role where he started a game. Cleveland was kind of playing their dudes all night for the most. I mean, that is Cleveland's, I think, start of the season rotation because the guys that weren't playing are hurt. Like that's why they weren't playing. And so I think that's what you're going to see from the Cavs. And so going against that level, and maybe it's just a learning experience, but it would be something to watch if he starts to get these opportunities. I don't know. I'm just very high on Dennis Jenkins. Let's talk Ron Holland. I'm just going down by points per game, guys. So if you're like, why have they not talked about Asar yet? I'm trying to keep it. This is just how it's organized for me. Ron Holland, 0-2, all 3 games, 20 minutes a game, 9 points, 41, 33% from 3 on 3 attempts. Like some people may like scoff at that being a positive, but we've seen a little bit. 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 2.5 turnovers. Last night, man, was a very roller coaster game from Ron Holland. I was like, oh my God, this dude is amazing. And then it was like, oh, there's a rough turnover. There's a rough attempt. There's a foul. Oh, come on, Ron, rein it back in. I think we know there's going to be a little bit of that, but your thoughts on Ron Holland so far?
Yeah, I think I made the prediction that he is around 34% from 3, and like his shot looks good.
Yes.
And he's been aggressive with it. And to be like, again, we're talking about smaller sample sizes through preseason and summer league, but it looks like something that's sustainable for him. And like, I do think there's a pretty big difference between being a 34% shooter and a 24% shooter, which is what he was last season. So that's been really good to see. Last night, he really came in with a lot of energy. Like he immediately scored 9 points in a row, and I thought kind of gave the offense a little bit of bite and aggressiveness after like a really sloppy start. He knocked down the 3-pointer. He had the drive, into a floater and one. Just like a lot of really good plays, but then also like over the course of the entire game, like I think that second quarter was probably, I'm sorry, that first quarter when he checked in was probably his best stretch, and he probably ended up shooting like
he was so good to start that.
Like he was really good to start, and then it just kind of fizzled. And I think he shot like 3 for 10 or something, but like that wasn't a normal game for him, like only because the Pistons really had none of their primary ball handlers. So, I think he had the ball more than he'll ever have it during the regular season. But like with Ron, it's always just been about maximum effort, right? And like I think that's what allowed him last year was just you knew every time he was going to check in, he was going to make some sort of impact, either offensively or defensively or both. And we've seen that through preseason. But again, the biggest thing with him, I think, is just that outside shot. And for him to be knocking down one out of every three definitely makes him a lot more dangerous because, like, the handle and line drives, like, is fine. Like, he's a good finisher at the rim, was last season as well. And I just think you'll see those other aspects of his game pop more as he knocks down more threes. So that's been the biggest takeaway for me is really just that he's hitting more of those.
I think that was the start of the minutes for him. Was what was so exciting was he gets a catch and shoot corner three, knocks it down. And then I think it was the very next possession, maybe a couple possessions later, he has a baseline drive and bucket out of the corner. And it's like, okay, you can see the vision beyond just playing in transition of being this corner weak side player that catches, shoots, knocks down threes, and then does it enough that he gets hard closeouts, and then defenders can't defend both. They're not going to stay with him off that. And then we saw enough passing between summer league and even some in the preseason where it's like, okay, if he breaks down the defense, we can trust Ron to make the right decisions. It's just whenever he starts getting asked to do a little bit too much. So I'm very encouraged by what we saw. And the other thing I'm interested to see, and I made this note in my, post-game notes and analysis, was what kind of whistle does Ron Holland get? Because I think that's going to determine a lot of nights. How many times does he drive in there aggressively and get a foul call and get to the free throw line? And how many times does he drive in there, doesn't get the call, and then it ends up being a turnover, a jump ball, a 0% shot attempt because, he gets tied up and the ball gets loose and whatever. So I think the whistle is going to be important for Ron Holland. And I'm a little nervous, O2, that being a second-year player that really hasn't fully established himself yet, it's going to be a frustrating year at times on some of those drives where he's not going to get the calls that he wants or maybe even should get. And then some of those drives are going to end up looking somewhat rough. Let's go to Isaiah Stewart next. 15 and a half minutes a game. He's played in all three preseason games, which is good, right? Coming off an injury to Isaiah Stewart last season. Just under 9 points, 56% from the field, 50% from the three-point line. We've seen the three-pointer come back a little bit. 3 rebounds. We know the box score stats aren't, something crazy for Stu because he's never ever going to play huge minutes. There was a stat on the broadcast last night. I don't even remember how many ever blocks Stu had last year was the most in like 4 or 5 seasons for a player 6'8" and under. And I was like, that was total blocks. And we know Stu doesn't play a ton of minutes. Could you imagine what that would look like if he was a 30-minute a game guy? So your thoughts on Isaiah Stewart, and maybe specifically O2, we know what he is on the defensive end, maybe specifically offensively, the three-point jumper looking like it's potentially coming back.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, he's been Stu, which is what you want to see, especially coming off the injury he had that, made him miss most of the playoffs. But, yeah, for me, it's more so offensively, and that's just the three ball being back. He didn't take that many of them last year after he took well over 100 through the 2 seasons before that. And, he and JB have both been pretty, clear about him getting back into that role a bit this season. And I've talked, on the pod before, just in general, like going from year 1 to year 2 as a staff, I think naturally you begin to expand roles for certain players as you become more familiar with them and their games. But yeah, I mean, Stu's a guy that's going to give you 110% effort for the full 20 minutes he's out there, which, you talk about being a guy that's not going to play as many minutes on a team with Duran. But I think along with that, his minutes being in that range just really allows him to go all out. And I think he goes for blocks that he wouldn't go for if he did have to play more minutes and be more concerned about fouls or whatever it may be. But yeah, again, the 3-point shooting is the big, change for him this season. It's something that they're going to need with some of the lineups that they want to run, particularly with Asar and Ron Holland. I think it's tough to play those guys with Duran, but with Stu shooting threes, it opens things up a lot. And other than that, he's a known commodity, right? I think you just want to see him get back to, who he was, and that's what he's done.
Downtown Deuce says, hit the like button, everybody. Appreciate Downtown Deuce's support. Make sure you're supporting Downtown Deuce and everything he's doing and all the content and everything he's putting out there. He does a lot of great stuff. So make sure you're following him on all of that. Downtown Deuce, put your stuff in the comments here. We'll make sure we push that out. In Wesley 13, is there anything more deflating? Is there a more deflating play than getting your dunk blocked? So I don't know about you, O2. I didn't really live in that world as a player, especially after high school. And I was the most athletic player in high school, so that didn't happen much. And then I was no longer the most athletic player in college. For me, it was missing wide open threes. Like if I had a wide open three and I missed it, that was deflating. Or I know this one's going to sound weird, but just like making an incredible passing read or pass and your teammate either dropping it or missing the easy shot, right? So like you come down, you read the defense, you manipulate the defense, you whip this pass, to a cutter or something like that, and then they drop it or they blow the layup. That stuff always really got to me. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that one, O2.
No, I was just going to say, when you're not like the point guard or whatever, like especially in lower levels where I think the positions are a bit more defined, like you don't get those opportunities to throw nice passes all the time. So, I think you probably feel that loss more because it's like, I'm not going to be able to, throw too many of those passes. So you need to make it would actually get it to you. But no, I mean, that's the only thoughts I have on that, really.
Koo says, Stu, shooting threes has become more of a priority because of their want to play Asar and Ron, 100% Omar. Let's talk about that real quick. I think I had a note from the game. The Asar, Holland, Stu lineup is going to cause some havoc. They get after you defensively, rebound, Asar and Holland getting out in transition, and we got a little taste of that at the end of the first quarter where Detroit makes a late run. It seemed like they dominated the possession battle at the end of the first quarter. It was like the action just stayed on one end of the court. I think they got out in transition. Maybe Asar got to the free throw line. Stu created an offense. Maybe someone was at the free throw line. One of them created an offensive rebound and then another one. And then they got another steal. It's just like, I don't know, man. I'm kind of here for those three guys because they're just going to get after you. And I think in a regular season, especially, the energy of that group and the pace and the way they play could surprise some teams and maybe flip a few games here and there where maybe the energy level is low or, you're on the road, in the northern, to a northern team and it's winter and it's cold, whatever. Like you need that every once in a while. And I think that lineup, that trio has the chance to flip some regular season games that will matter in terms of seeding for this team.
Yeah, I think we've seen a bit of like the first and second units having different identities, and a lot of that second unit like having its own, I think, more chaotic wrecking crew type of energy. It's just, I mean, yeah, you have Asar, you have Ron, and you have Stu, and those guys I think could just overwhelm teams in their own ways. But anytime you have Ron and Asar on the court, and through preseason, it's been noticeable whenever they played together because it just seems like the pace of the game just goes from here to like here, and they're forcing turnovers and getting easier buckets, and like that's something that could really be a strength for them next season, to be able to bring those guys in. And they're going up against opposing second units, but they come in with a very physical, very athletic pace. I think they're unique in the sense that you have a floor spacing five and then two wings who may not be spacers but could do a little bit of everything else. Like Asar obviously is unique in his own way. Like I want to see that group with like JI or like just maybe some different combinations at point guard just to see how that looks, because I mean I think you could just imagine JI out there with some of the other guys and like the speed goes up even higher, right? But that's a really good advantage and just a strength for this team overall, is that like you could put those guys in and that they're going to make their imprint on the game, like regardless of the shooting, because they're going to make it tough for teams defensively, and that's what they need from that.
Dennis Jenkins. All right, let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk some Asar Thompson.
All right, we're going to talk about Asar here in segment 3.
I'll give a quick stats, O2. So 20 minutes a game, 8 points on 47, hasn't hit a three, taken one a game, it looks like. 41% from the free throw line, which isn't great. Of course, I will say he's getting there almost 6 times which is second behind only Tobias Harris. 5 rebounds, just under 3 assists, 2.5 stocks, 1 turnover. I want to start here because offensively, we could potentially, I'm not going to say it's going to skew negative, but there could be some areas of growth on the offensive end as we talk through what it looks like running ball screens, all of that. So I want to start so we never lose sight of this. This dude is awesome defensively. He showed it on the first play of the game. Cleveland tries to run an action to start the game. Ausar recognizes it, blows up the action with his help, and then steals the ball because as he recovers because he's so active with his hands. He had another great defensive play with a left-handed transition block. I just want to say and start there. Ausar is awesome defensively. I think if he has the minutes in the games played, he will very much be in the all defense conversation this year. And I want to make sure we start there because if the offense does end up being a little bit of room to grow or whatever, I want to make sure we start with the fact that we understand and acknowledge the impact this man brings specifically on the defensive end every second he's on the court.
I also want to say, and I wrote this a couple weeks ago, I think, when I made predictions for the season, but he averaged 1.7 steals per game in 23 minutes last year. Like, if he's playing 30-plus minutes, there's a very real chance that the only player in the league who has more steals than him is Dyson Daniels. And that's because, like, Dyson is just, like, a historically, great player at forcing steals. But, like, Ausar is really not that far behind at all.
And Ausar is straight up just better, like, guarding solidly than Dyson Daniels. Like, Ausar is just better at the point of attack than Dyson is.
Yeah, he is. Like, I guess Dyson, like, I really like him as a player, but a lot of the DPOY attention he got, I think, was more so because of the steals. Because, well, I've said this before. I also think my view is a little bit biased because, like, he just can't defend Cade.
Well, I say you realize how that it skews your thought process on things, right? Whenever you see him, Atlanta has to double Cade because Dyson Daniels can't defend him one-on-one. Like
he's just too small.
I love Dyson. I want to be clear. I love Dyson. I'm not trying to get on a Hawks Reddit and, people like, I'm not throwing shade at Dyson. I had Dyson as a top, to be clear, I have Dyson ahead of Ausar right now in my defensive player rankings. Like, I think Dyson is awesome, but like, at the point of attack, the all-around versatility, all of that, if that gap is completely closed this year, I would not be surprised between those two defensively. I think Dyson is underrated offensively, but that's a different conversation. So continue with
for sure. But Ausar, just his ability to map the court, and he's also got that, like, again, he could diagnose plays, and he knows where he needs to be. And, like, he can see the next play developing as it's happening. But, like, I think what separates them, because a lot of great defenders could do that, but a lot of great defenders don't have just, like, Asar's ability to move. Like, I would say he might be one of the fastest players, just, like, not necessarily full sprint, but just how he gets around the court, even in half-court sets. Like, it's almost like he floats. And it's like you blink and, he may go rotate from one corner to the opposite. I mean, he moves so fluidly and decisively on defense that's always going to be something that's really tough for opposing teams to handle because, again, you're, combining a really, really sharp defensive mind with a physical toolkit that probably only his brother also has. So, like, that's been great to see from him. I know we're going to talk about his offense, and that's been more of a mixed bag, but defensively, like, he's been exactly who he's been. And with him playing more minutes, like, some of those defensive stats are going to be crazy. Like, not just the steals, but the blocks too. Like, he's going to be one of the stock leaders next season for sure.
Jake Desane says, finally caught a live podcast. Great start to a Wednesday. Appreciate you joining. Again, all of you, thank you so much. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Continue to support the pod any way you can, as well as reading Omari's work on the Free Press. Go subscribe to the Motor City Hoops Substack, where there's all sorts of content coming out over there, especially with the season now getting started. Next week, one more preseason game. Talking Ausar Thompson, let's go to the offense. Listen, I also don't want it to get lost. I want to be clear again. We said this last week. I like what they're doing. I like the idea of putting the ball in his hands and finding out how far he can take this. I think that's good. I think it's a smart process. I even think it should continue into the season. Now, you have to be careful. If the results aren't super positive, you can't let it cost you too many games. I mean, that is the space the Pistons are in now where, yes, you still want to collect data and grow and all of that stuff, but you are also in a situation where you're, competing for ideally playoff position and all of that. I also want to say, like, he is still really good in transition. So eventually we want to talk about like the half court offense, operating ball screen, stuff like that. I have no problem ever putting the ball in his hands in transition, even with Cade on the floor, right? Let Cade run, get him some catch and shoot threes, get him those transition post ups, all of that. Asar should absolutely be getting the ball in transition. I stay steadfast in that. I do think some of the half court offense stuff has been interesting because the handle is a little bit loose to me, O2. And so, like, it allows defenders, even if he's going to beat them, it allows defenders to get a hand on it. It allows help defenders to get a hand on it, all of that. So I think that's been my biggest takeaway, as Koo has been talking about in the chat. Like he's drawing fouls and his free throw rate and all of that, even though the percentage is low, defenders are having to foul him. I think he can be really, really good at this. I do just think the handle has to tighten a little bit, and he's got to figure out the nuances of some of these drives. But I like the process. I like they're doing it because I do think it helps maximize Asar as an all-around player and his value.
Definitely. We've seen Asar in transition. He is very dangerous in transition just because of his speed and athleticism and ability to find his teammates. I think that's been pretty established since the start. Like, as you said, it's more so the half court where I think you can see the limitations of his handle. It's a little bit loose. And then I think you can kind of see that discomfort for him as well. Just having to be in that pure creator role and, not necessarily just, make the right play for himself, but also, be aware of what all four teammates are doing as well. Some of that, I mean, he's doing some stuff he hasn't been asked to do at an NBA level, and there's going to be growing pains. So I don't see that as like inherently problematic. They're very much trying to just expand his game. I think the expectation is that he'll be better at it in January than he is now, and then he'll be better in April than he is in January. And he's had, moments in like half court where he's made good plays. Like, again, like whenever he has the ball, I think he's always a threat just to draw foul, just because like he could get to the rim so quickly. And I mean, just his leaping ability, like a lot of times he's going to get fouled. But as Koo mentioned, like he has to get better at the line too. Like he's been around 63% at the line through 2 years. And he's been around 40% in preseason. I think he was 5 for 10 maybe last night, or somewhere around there. So there's some things to nitpick for sure. But outside of the free throw shooting, the handle could come along a bit more. And I think also just, even if the handle doesn't come along, like he could just become more comfortable in general in that role. Because right now I think you could tell that it's something that he's filling out, and it's something that he's being asked to do for the first time and getting used to it, at least at an NBA level.
So I had a few more like detailed notes from the Bucks game. So I just want to go through those. So I think just the nuance of operating ball screen. So there was one in the Bucks game. He's operating with Stu. The defender's going to go under screens with Asar because Asar can't shoot right now from the 3-point line. So he knows that. So when a defender goes under a ball screen, you either step behind and shoot it. Not really an option for Asar, or you immediately reuse it. Well, he reused it, but he went way too fast, and Stu wasn't able to flip his hips, lower the set of the screen to get contact, and the defender just went right back underneath. It's those little things that he will just learn, right? Because as you've mentioned before on the pod, he watches film. So I'm sure he's already watched that rep, learn from it, and will do it better the next time. But it does kind of take game reps to figure that stuff out. How are teams going to defend me? What is the pace? Do I have to slow down? You can't always just be going full speed. But to the positives, started, what was it? I think gotten the ball in his hand to start offense. The first 3 possessions. This was of the game. Pressured the paint on 2. In that Bucks game, he had a bump, what I called like the little bump, that literally just made the defender like move him completely out of the way. And so like that physicality he can play with. And the nuance of that is how much can I bump? When can I bump? All of that. So while I am nervous about the handle being loose, because I do think that that limits it for at least till he clears that up, there are a lot of other things that are very positive in terms of just go get paint touches, Asar. Just touch the paint and then make the right decision. I still would love to see him really lean into the 8 to 12 foot jump higher than you mid-range, that's short mid-range jump shot, whatever we want to call it. I think that that could be really, really good. So, yeah, so Downtown Zeus says it feels like they're seeing what he's capable of so that in a pinch when needed, they can potentially go to that. But with Cade and Jaden available, I personally hope we don't see it too often. Yeah, no, that's good. Koo says he's also shown a much better feel to sell contact and draw fouls, which is good to see. He had a great deceleration and finish, I think, in the game last night. I am with Deuce a little bit here where, I mean, I would still like to see J.I., operate with the ball in his hand some in a second unit situation without Cade. But there are going to be games where Cade doesn't play, J.I. doesn't play, minutes, obviously, where you need another guy to kind of operate. And if Asar can do that, again, it just ups his overall value. So we'll continue to see. We'll see what it looks like going in the regular season. O2, is there anybody? I know we finally saw Jalen Duren. Chaz Lanier, I think, has played close to the most minutes on the team outside of Dennis and Duncan Robinson, has played in all 3 games. Anybody else you really want to, I saw Javonte Green was mentioned earlier. I mentioned in my notes, I think Javonte Green, similar to what we're talking about with like Paul Reed and Dennis Jenkins, I think he's a fine, not in your too deep rotation wing. If he's just playing, whenever guys are hurt or foul trouble or something like that for short minutes. We've only seen Karis LeVert 1 game. Any thoughts on any of the other guys before we finish off with a few hot takes?
No, I think there was a comment earlier about Duncan underwhelming a little bit. Like, I think they're figuring out some field things with him. Just his rhythm as a shooter, where he likes to ball, like all that stuff. I do think he's just as good of a shooter as Malik Beasley, but I think along with that, like, there's always just going to be a filling out process with any guy who's taking spot up threes, just figuring out how they like to get the ball. So I feel like there's been some filling out stuff there. Otherwise,
can I touch on Duncan
sure.
Real quick?
Yeah.
29% on just under 5 attempts. So people that were, I don't think the volume's a worry. I think what you just said is the biggest thing. He's not the same type of shooter as Malik Beasley. I think when I went and looked, I did the numbers in terms of like, he wasn't as good off the screens as Malik was. Like, maybe it's a little more catch and shoot. So figuring out where he gets shots, how he gets shots is going to be important. I think he's willing to take the volume, obviously needs to knock him down. I think the other aspects of his offensive game have been decent. You can see how he can leverage his shooting, and he's a good passer. I think in every game he's had at least one where he's like gotten to the baseline or the paint and then found a teammate out on the perimeter. He rebounds the ball a little bit. The defense is always going to be a concern. He's always going to be a guy that can get hunted a little bit. So it will be interesting to see how quickly they can figure out where his shots need to come from.
Absolutely. And Koo mentions he had the DHO with Duren, drove baseline, and then hit a side with the bounce pass cutting. And yeah, we've seen some of that secondary playmaking from Duncan, which, like, we knew he could do that coming in, but also to see it, I think, is really big. I've mentioned this before, but I'd be curious if Duncan ends up becoming like really, really up there in minutes, just because he does a lot of stuff that you're not getting from elsewhere. And then outside of Duncan, somebody mentioned Kobe Jones. I did like him in that draft. He made his debut last night. Only played 8 or 9 minutes. I think he knocked down a 3-pointer. Looking at the stats now, he did knock down a 3-pointer, and he got to the line. So we haven't seen a lot of him, but like Kobe Jones, he's on a 2-way with this team. His draft profile was pretty strong a couple of years ago. So that's just a TBD. Like, I don't know how much we'll see him this season, but like, I did like him in that draft, and he did make his debut last night. So, I'm wondering if, eventually he's able to show what he can do.
Yep. As Cam says, Koo has great breakdowns too. Yeah. Of course, you guys should definitely be subscribed to Koo's Substack and taking in all of his content. Arthur says, impressed with Duncan's hustle. He's beginning to lose balls. Yeah, I think he does the little things better than maybe what you would expect for a guy who's just labeled as a floor spacer and a shooter. we were going to do some hot takes, breaking down the preseason as it tends to do, ends up taking most of the episode. Are there any you want to get off your chest? The only one I really wanted to do was Cade, which is my hot take is Cade ends up first team all NBA and known as the best American born player in the NBA by the end of the season. I don't even know how hot of a take that is, but I know this has been a conversation recently, like with Tatum out and all of that, who's the best American born player in the league. I just think by the end of this regular season, that will be Cade. And, there's always, so right now, Jokic, Giannis, SGA, Luka are kind of looked as the top 4 guys in terms of like MVP preseason, all of that. And the debate really comes down to who's the 5th guy. And it's a lot of Anthony Edwards and Wemby and, a lot of guys, much deserved. Injuries or otherwise, like that would be my hot take, is that Cade Cunningham ends up first team all NBA, top 5 in MVP voting, and, is looked at as the best American born player in the league.
Yeah, I agree with all that for the most part. Like, I think he has a chance to be top 5 in MVP voting. Absolutely. Conversation for best American born player with Tatum out. I think he'll be right in that conversation, probably top 2 or 3 guys next year. Could definitely see first or second team all NBA. Just like there's like the guard position is just so deep, and if the Hawks have a good year, then Trey maybe in that conversation. So I don't put as much stock into first, second, third team, just because every year I feel like there's more talent than spots available, essentially. So I don't necessarily see it as a knock if a guy ends up third instead of second. But other than that, like I would say, like I think Duncan, I think he will also hit 300 3-pointers. I think he is just as good of a shooter as Malik Beasley is, career 40% or whatever it may be. And I looked it up during that COVID season, he was on pace to hit 300 3-pointers. And I think he finished with like 270 or something like that. And obviously that season ended early, and you lost maybe the last 15 games or so. But I don't know how hot of a take that is. But like I think the Pistons could have back-to-back players make 300 threes, especially with THJ out. Like there's just a lot of shots available that are going to go to Duncan.
Yeah, no, I mean I love it. Koo's hot take is starting lineup changes by January. Love that. I'm kind of glad we didn't get into this because I was like truly going to go like hot takes. And I don't think I want to do that with what I was going to have with JI and JD or some of the others. So I think it's better off if we just stop here. So I don't know when we'll record next, guys. I was just looking at the schedule, and their first game is on Wednesday, a week from today. So that's exciting, but not ideal for when we normally record. So we'll have to figure out if we're going to go another one before the regular season starts, or maybe change our normal recording and do something different. So, yeah, Koo, you can text me and I'll give you my thoughts, but not here. So we'll let you guys know. Okay. Chuck says, so Thursday morning, like that's honestly probably potential. What we end up doing is that may end up being what it is. Koo says, good stuff, guys. Always love listening. Appreciate you. Thank you, everybody. Again, 200 episodes today. We're very proud. We appreciate all of you. O2, take it away, my guy.
Yeah, we'll throw ourselves a 200 episode party at some point later.
Yes.
We need to make that happen. Big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, our executive producer, Bill Bradley, and big thanks to Wes Davenport as always. We'll talk to you all next week.